What is up, good people? Welcome to Excellence Personified with Elijah L. Harris. I am him, Mr. Elijah L. Harris himself. Thank you for taking the time to join me. I 1000% appreciate it. You could be anywhere and with anybody else, listening to somebody else at this very moment, but right now you're with me. So I appreciate it. I'm gonna get right into it and try to be concise with this. I feel like I have thoughts and feelings all over the place with this topic, but let's do some housekeeping up front. I'm gonna be honest, be real with you. I haven't recorded anything in quite a while. I think it'll kind of relate to what I'm gonna talk about today too. But quite frankly, one of the things I have to work on as a person is resiliency and resiliency in who I am as a person, what it is that I want to do, need to do, my goals, and like not getting knocked off path when I set out to do something. And as I get older, it's so much easier to see. And for me, I'm much more self aware now than I used to be of when that starts to shake and why it starts to shake. And when it does, trying to reel myself back in and be like, okay, you're going through something right now. There's some level of turbulence. Cool. That's life. But these goals, though, like this podcast, though, like you got things you need to do, things you need to record, right? You want to be somewhere. You need to do what you need to do in order to get there, no matter what, right? And I think for me, for quite a while, I've struggled with that, and I'm much more aware now, obviously, than I used to be. But turning that awareness into action and into practice is, and something totally different aside from just awareness. So yes, I think I fell off a little bit, just doing some introspective thinking. Feel like a lot is on my plate right now. I'm just trying to manage a lot. And I haven't been in that space for a while. I got kind of cool and comfortable and living in paradise low key just in life. But I'm here. I'm back. I'm doing my best. And that's all that matters. Mental, emotional check-in. I think all those things taken into account, I would say I'm probably at a 6. I'm probably at a 6 because of that lack of stability and feeling like I'm not my best self. I'm not showing up as my best self. And like I said, I historically have been a runner. I'm one to run from things when it gets tough. And that's not easy for me to say because I don't like that about myself, but I'm just being real with you. I'm being real with you. You got to look at yourself and be like, all right, who am I and why am I who I am? And then attack it, right? I've been a runner. I've gotten better at that, but sometimes when things get hard, I run away and then I turn around and face it when I don't have an opportunity or I don't have a choice. Eventually, I get myself in line and be like, all right, E, you got to do this. The hardest part is turning around and facing whatever it is that you're running from. Stop running. All right. It's just going to keep chasing you and you can't run fast enough or long enough to get away from it. So turn around and face it. Um, I say all that to say I'm probably at about a 6 right now, but we're gonna keep it pushing. And it's not all bad things either. I think a lot of times for me individually, it doesn't even have to be bad things going on. It could just be a lot, and me feeling like I'm not capable or not worthy of stepping into whatever it is that's in front of me, handling it, and moving on from it. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox. Um, but yeah, I'm at a 6, but we move. You feel me? I do think, though, what I'm talking about right now is going to lead directly into the topic at hand. All right, let's get into it. Kicking off the excellence spotlight before we jump in, I want to talk about Red Lobster. All right. Red Lobster is going to make a surge back to prominence, back to relevance, and it's going to be off the strength of their new CEO. And bear with me as I try to pronounce his name, Damola Adamalakun. I believe he's Nigerian of descent. Please, somebody in the comments, somebody somewhere, correct me if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. However, he is very bright, 35-year-old former CEO of PF Chang's, which I'm sure you know of, probably have eaten that in the past, just like me. But he's super bright, already going viral, talking about, the endless shrimp offering at Red Lobster being on the menu and being just a horrible idea. and ultimately a loss of money. Part of what led Red Lobster to bankruptcy in the first place, which he has saved it from, even just in his short time being in the CEO chair. But but he seems like he has a really good head on his shoulders, and he's going to take Red Lobster to where it needs to be. And why not highlight Black excellence when we have the opportunity to do so? It's a beautiful thing to see. Super well spoken. Not to say that we can't speak being of the Black culture, African culture, but he clearly knows what he's talking about, and he's laying out a plan of how Red Lobster will make a surge back to prominence and being just a relevant, thriving franchise. He also talked about Red Lobster not going backwards in order to go forwards, right? Like he's talking about this being the bottom, and we're gonna climb and get back to a place where we're profitable. So I'm excited to see it. Anytime someone of the culture is in a place of power or in a position to where he can show off and thrive and succeed, we get behind him, we back him, right? And let's not overlook the fact that we as a people looked at Red Lobster as the pinnacle. You feel me? We going to get some crabs, some shrimp, and some lobster tails at Red Lobster, and we gonna eat fancy tonight. You know what I'm saying? We don't think about Red Lobster that way anymore. However, in the next few years, as this man steps in and starts to make some changes, don't be surprised if you end up back at a Red Lobster table that you might not have been over the past 5 years or whatever. Don't be surprised. Okay. Um, yeah, some things are gonna start to happen, and I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see it. And to parlay into the topic, part of the reason Red Lobster is where it is because of actions that have taken in the past, right? Endless shrimp being one of them. I talked about being maybe a mistake that they made along the way multiple times. But over time, people started to develop a narrative around what Red Lobster is, who they are. They ain't nothing but some cheddar bay, cheese biscuits. You get there, you get them, and that's your meal. You set. That makes your meal basically. That and seeing the lobsters in the tank when you walk in. um, but with this new CEO in place, I feel like he's going to step in and change the narrative, right? I just started a new job this past summer, and so I've been in this position for about 4 months or so. Still new, still learning, but much more established and comfortable in my role at this point now than I used to be. And I'm now working in diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is somewhat new to me, right? Learning, like I said, and growing. And part of my role, a big part of it, I'll say, is going around to different parts of our business and talking to people, different people groups, different parts of the business, different departments, leaders, all those things included, right? It's actually kind of fun for somebody who likes to connect with people and pour into them and give them all they need to like be the best version of themselves and succeed. Yeah, it kind of works for me. I like it. But so I've been doing that along with my director, and I've learned a lot. I've seen a lot. Something that a leader said to me in the past week or so was that it's important to embrace the narrative. Okay, embrace the narrative. And as I heard that phrase really stuck with me. Okay, one, because as I'm doing this work, a big part of understanding where I can add value is listening and understanding what the narrative is. Okay, I'm going to toss this narrative word around and we're going to talk about it. But if I can define it as we get into it, a narrative based on X search engine, a narrative is a story or a description of a series of events. Basically, this is what happened and this is why I look at this situation because of X number of things or whatever happened in the past. Okay. It says it can be used as a noun or as an adjective describing a situation, or this is the situation. This is the narrative. Okay. So I do a lot of listening to figure out what is the narrative, what's going on these specific teams, these specific people, all that. And then from there, you can figure out, okay, where can we bridge the gap? How can we unify this team as people, as professionals, and move you forward, right? But if we don't embrace the narrative and understand where we are right now, we can't bridge the gap or know what the best next step is. And I started to think about that, and I'm like, wow, that's really powerful. Not to say that this is anything groundbreaking, but it's incredibly important because you can't build on a situation or from where you are currently if you don't embrace it, all of it. Okay, the good, the bad, the ugly, the okay, all of it. Okay, because it all works together to create that narrative that you're currently living in. All right. Secondly, or additionally, as a part of my job, another thing that I've discovered that we're using as a tool is this idea of an iceberg, right? The iceberg model. You might have heard of it, seen it, kind of done it for yourself, but the way we use it is to help people understand that they are, built up kind of like an iceberg as people. There are parts of us that show up above the surface that people can look at and understand right off the bat without even having to talk to you or know you any deeper than what they see on the surface. And there's quite a bit underneath the surface that they have no idea about you or even about themselves sometimes. But we are all icebergs, okay? And as we interact and talk to each other, work with each other, we got to figure out who exactly is this iceberg that I'm sitting here looking at and talking to, trying to work with. Behavior's all jacked up for whatever reason. The reason might lie beneath the surface. The majority of that iceberg floating in the ocean is under the surface. And if we don't figure out what's down there and identify, where these thoughts and beliefs and behaviors come from, then a narrative is going to get developed, and you might have a certain view of that person or your leader or whatever based on some things you don't even understand. So this whole thing about a narrative it's multifaceted, right? Number one, identifying and understanding who you are as an individual, having that level of self-awareness to know, like, this is why I am the way that I am, why I move the way that I move, and how we got here. And then understanding how you as an individual or how someone else is an individual and you as a team help create or build that narrative. It's all encompassing. All right. But to be able to move forward, you, them, and everybody included need to be able to embrace that, embrace the narrative. Now, I'm using my job as an example of what that would look like or what that would feel like in a team environment when there's other people involved. I think the same goes for us as individuals. Okay. There is a narrative currently in your life that's been built off of your past behaviors, your past actions, things that you've done in the past. There's a narrative that's been created on that, good or bad. Okay. You may not have 100% of power to write your own narrative necessarily, because I do think that part of your narrative comes from external sources and how people view you and how people interact with you. That becomes a part of your narrative, but you absolutely have the power to influence what your narrative is. So if you want it to be different, you have the power to make it different. You have the power to change your behaviors to shift the narrative, right? I've also, as I thought about this, I tried to stop and like look around at maybe public figures that are out here moving certain ways, behaving in certain ways, crafting a narrative, right? Most notably in recent times, Sir Sean Combs has crafted a narrative. Now this is years worth of actions, behaviors that have built that narrative. So to be able to shift or rewrite that, I don't know that he has the the amount of time or influence to undo some of those things. You feel me? But generally, I would say, as people, especially as my listeners, I would think we're not in that type of position. Okay, so we might have a little bit more leeway to influence our narratives. Not to say that it's easy, you know, not to say that there won't be some tug and pull with people. People still might not believe in who you are or as you recraft your narrative, but we have the power to do so. Okay. Let's think about maybe on a positive note, what a positive narrative might look like. Let's maybe take a different example that's not quite as controversial. Let's think about Dwayne Wade. Okay. Dwayne Wade, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer just yet, but Hall of Fame caliber basketball player, most notably, married to Gabrielle Union. He has some competing narratives, I would say, right? I would say much more positive than negative. However, people can craft a narrative around Dwayne Wade, positive and negative. Negatively, because, Dwayne was found that he was dabbling outside of his relationship with Gabrielle Union and had another union with another woman and created another baby, right? Really sticky situation. Not the best moment for Dwayne. That's a part of his narrative that has been built off of his actions, right? But at the same time, on the flip side, he has embraced his marriage with Gabrielle Union, embraced all of his children, including Zaya, who was born a boy, who didn't feel like she was a boy and has transitioned into being a girl. And Dwayne has embraced all of that and has built and continues to push the narrative of being an advocate for people as a whole. And outsiders can look at Dwayne and be like, I don't know how I feel about him, that whole situation, think certain ways about him. All that is cool. Do they influence the narrative? Sure. But does Dwayne have the power to influence the narrative even more? Absolutely. And all I'm saying in this situation, with Dwayne specifically, and with the idea of the narrative as a whole in general, is that regardless of what people might say or what you might do, if a narrative is being crafted that you don't necessarily agree with, I believe that there could be some level of truth in it to where you have to embrace all of it. Process that for yourself. Determine, is this an area that I can acknowledge and grow in? And then move forward to influence the narrative that is crafted about you, or that represents the legacy that you're looking to leave. I think it's important to embrace all of that, because sometimes that narrative that's crafted, you may not realize relates to you, okay? You might not see it, you might not feel it, but those around you that interact with you, they might get it. And so much so that you need to get it in order to influence your narrative in a positive way. I don't want to misconstrue this. I feel myself kind of sort of doing it. I don't want to misconstrue this in a way where I'm saying, like, you need to be worried about what other people think of you in order to be the best version of you for them. I don't think that's what I'm trying to get at. The point of what I'm trying to get at is, for you as an individual, it's important for you to embrace the narrative that is being written that relates to you, to make sure that you are moving in the best possible way for yourself as an individual. That's more of what I'm getting at. Okay, so let me make this personal. What is my narrative? What has been my narrative in the past? What is your narrative? What do you think, if people were to write about you, what would people write? I want you to, like, maybe after you finish listening to this, get a pen and a piece of paper, and if you haven't already, write out what you think your narrative is about you. If someone else were to write it, what would they write? And then maybe draw a line under that and write what you think your narrative is. See how they align. And those people that might have written that narrative that's on the top, do they see the current you? Do they get a chance to see all of you? Do they know all of you? Especially if you've grown from the narrative that people think relates to you. Do they know the growth that you've had in the time since they knew you? All things to take into account, right? But again, the overall point here is to embrace all of what might be a part of your narrative. So things that have been a part of my narrative in the past and in the present, Um, E is a poor communicator. All right. E is a poor communicator. E does not listen to people that are trying to help him. E is hard-headed, for lack of a better phrase. E tries to do things on his own. Whatever E wants to do, he's going to do it. E is not very vulnerable or open. People don't know him. These are things that I know. People have said this in the past. I wrote this down about myself because I know that is what people have thought about me or currently think about me. Now, with that said, I do think all of those things are true or have been. I would say they're probably still currently true to some extent. I think they're still part of my narrative. The only thing I would push back on is when I say that I'm a poor communicator. I don't think I'm a poor communicator. I think I'm selective. Maybe that means I'm a poor communicator. I think I'm a selective communicator. I don't always respond to people. But when I do, I communicate well. I wouldn't have a podcast if I couldn't communicate, right? But I'm selective in my communication. And what that leads to is poorly managed relationships historically. And I acknowledge that. I embrace that because that's a part of who I have been. But because of that, I know what I need to do in order to be a better version of me and certain things that I might have to put into place in order to make that happen. Maybe I need to set reminders for myself to reach out to people or respond to people. Sometimes we need systems to put in place in order to get us to where we really want to be, really need to be. I get that. I feel that. I've been in relationships, romantic relationships with people in the past. Feel the same way. I don't communicate very well. I mentioned at the beginning of this that I'm a runner. Sometimes I run. People don't like that, right? Because that means that you don't trust me enough to come to me to tell me what it is that you got going on or let me know what's happening. You'll run. I can't handle that. That's a part of my narrative, right? That has impacted my life in the past multiple times. But I understand that about me. So I can choose to live differently. Me not listening to people that are trying to help me, I think a part of that for me comes from being afraid of trying to trust people, being afraid of or not believing that I'm worthy of the help or that I have to struggle through things on my own in order to get somewhere where I made it there on my own. That's pride and that's being hard-headed because you can only go but so far by yourself. And there's one thing I have learned, especially when it comes to relationships, if people are around you trying to help you, they're only going to try but so much for so long before they decide, well, he don't listen. We can't help him. Let him go. He is going to learn the easy way or the hard way. Let him do him. And again, this is something that I've had to understand and realize. Like, I don't know everything. Sometimes I do need help. And there are actually people around me that want to help me. And I don't have to be perfect in order for me to go to them and have them help me. That is something that I continue to have to work through in my mind and in my heart. Because for some reason, I believe like I have to prove to myself that I can do it on my own. And that's just, it's counterproductive. Like, it's just, anybody got time for all of that? Like, come on. So again, part of my narrative. I'm not very vulnerable or open. People don't know me. Whew-wee. That's very real. That is very real. But it's funny though, because for me, as a person, I am, maybe this is also selective. I'm somewhat of an open book as long as I'm willing to open up, right? Me having this platform, wanting to have a podcast and make videos and content and all that, part of that was to drive me to be more vulnerable and open to allow people insight to my life. There's a lot on the inside of this shell. I have been to therapy many, 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 many times. Many times. And I have been equated to a turtle. I am a turtle When I don't feel safe, I go right on up into my shell, and you won't see me, you won't hear from me. But when I come out, I be snapping. I got things to say. I got thoughts and feelings I need to get off my chest. But when I'm in my shell, hey, I am not vulnerable and I am not open, and you will not know me. However, what I know now more than ever is that, again, not helpful, not healthy, and not conducive to a healthy relationship. So, yes, I'm willing and open to have conversations with people. I just got to feel safe. And part of that is making space on the inside of me for that safety. Therapy is a beautiful thing. Let me tell you something. I'm not gonna get into it right here because I ain't got time. But we are appreciative of the therapy. Trust and believe. But I say all that to show a little bit of the inside of me, embracing my own narrative. And your narrative does not always have to be bad. I sat and focused on 3 different bad things or areas of opportunity, I'll say, when there are parts of me that are bright, you can't miss it, and are just incredibly positive when you are around me or when you interact with me. And I know those things too. And they work well for me when I allow them to. So, your narrative, a part of it, as I mentioned at the beginning, your narrative, a part of it is self-awareness, understanding how your actions come to the surface and how it impacts those around you and other people's perception. I think all of those things go into building your narrative. But once it's built, once it's crafted, once it's written, it's up to you to open it up and read it and determine, do I like this story? Can I rewrite this story? I got some things I want to add to this. Let me create an alternate ending to this narrative. You have the ability to do that. You do, right? You're an editor of your own narrative. Edit that thing. Be an influencer. Change your actions, improve your actions, and craft a new narrative. Improve your narrative, right? And the last thing, and almost the most important thing, as you identify what your narrative is and you look to rewrite it or shift it, you got to be ready for that. My God, you have to be ready to rewrite your narrative. You have to be in a place where you can look at, read, and embrace all of what's on that page, all of what is written, and be like, you know what? It's time. I'm ready to change this. I'm ready to scratch all that out and rewrite a new narrative. You got to be ready for that. You have to be ready, because what's going to happen is you have to change your actions. You have to change your mindset, your behaviors. All of that goes into recrafting the narrative that's written, that's attached to you. You have to be ready for that. You might have to change your habits. You might have to change your level of addiction to certain things. People tie that narrative to you. If you want to rewrite it and change that, you got to be ready. You have to be ready to make it happen, to do what it takes to make it happen. But I believe that you have the ability to do so. You have the ability to do so. And if you are so far down a rabbit hole where people are going to, write that narrative that they have on you in pen, in permanent marker, cool. Let them write it. However, you still have the opportunity to be an influencer on your own narrative, because you are you. Okay? There is no bigger influencer of your narrative than you. And as you do that, that work that goes in, that doesn't go unnoticed, in my humble opinion. It doesn't go lost between you and God, and between you, God, and whoever decides to pick up that book and read it. Because what they're going to pick up, they're going to see the old narrative, and then they're going to see the newly minted narrative as well. And it's going to be a beautiful thing to write, a beautiful thing to read, a beautiful thing to see come to life. Man, good God, I'm getting into it. I'm visualizing it already. I'm sitting here looking at a laptop, all right? I'm visualizing it for you. Scratch all that out. Whatever narrative has already been tied to you, scratch it out right now. Because you have the power to influence what's written on the next page. Do not overlook that. Don't drop the power that you have. Can you do it by yourself? Maybe not. don't choose to, but you have the power to influence what's written, that narrative that's written about you. Embrace it, understand it, accept it, cool, take it, rewrite it, and move forward. You have the ability to do so. And when you do, you let me know, because I want to pick up that book and I want to read it. I want all the nuts and bolts and the pretty sunshine that comes out on the end. You let me know. I want to know how your narrative has changed from the past to the present, and what you were looking to shift for the present to the future. Let me know. All right. I'm looking forward to it. I love y'all, man. Stay tapped in. I got more to come, more guests. I got on a little bit of a soapbox on this episode. Thank you for taking the time. That is all I have for this one. I will let you go. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, peace, love, and joy. I'ma holla at y'all.